let's talk a little bit about what you've been able to accomplish in the state legislature. You've been a real big proponent of drunken driving
Right.
Issues. Give me a little rundown.
Well, it started out with young people. My very first year in the General Assembly, I had some kids from Dwenger High School present me with what was a proposal. In fact, it ended up being a Reader's Digest. They were a winner for it, and that had to do with the red background on the driver's license for kids, and the purpose was to try to get them to, not be able to get drinks under the age 21. And I was going to do legislation, and then I convinced Governor Orr at that time to do it by executive order. So we got it accomplished. But working with the kids, I always thought it was really interesting that these young kids, they were part of the SAD chapter, and that they were so interested in that issue, and they were kids themselves. Because I remember what it was like when I was young. I wanted to get out and I wanted to drink, just like I think every kid does even though it may not have been legal, I wanted to. And so I started checking into it, and I started seeing the number of young people that died in crashes that were caused from alcohol-related crashes. And then from that, I saw what happened with even in adults. And so in 1990 was the first year that I introduced, and I had a real comprehensive drunk driving bill then. It was to ban open containers. It was to do the .08 and to do all of the things that eventually did become law. But excuse me, but the .08 took me 11 years to do that, and it was really kind of an interesting thing because you say, well, I get beat on this issue, and do I really want to do it again? And every year I met new families, and I would estimate today that I probably know 700-800 families who lost a family member to drunk driving. And every year when I'd get beat and I'd make the decision, I'm not going to do it again, I'd have these family members come to me, and additional ones. And it just drove me on. And it took a long time, but we got it accomplished. Same thing happened with seat belts. It was an issue that people were dying, people were severely injured in crashes from the lack of seat belts. I had opposition in there. And I guess the thing was, the more opposition I had, the more interested I was in seeing it done, because to me, it was saving of lives. And I've been able to be successful in that also. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of the issues, like I said, that I've done over the years, and I still hear people complain about drunk driving. And in other words, they're mad because I went to .08, and I hear people complain because of the seat belts too. But as I told you earlier, from National Highway Traffic Safety, I received a national award in 2009, and it was based upon all the things that I had done, and they had proven to be true as far as the number of deaths and the number of injuries that have been reduced because of the actions that we take. And in fact, in 2009, Indiana's death rate on its highways was the lowest it has been since 1925. And a part of that was the solution of .08, and a lot of it was the solution of seatbelts in vehicles. So I have an inner pride for that. I try not to push it, but I really feel that I did something that somebody else either couldn't do or wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm. One of the other areas that you've introduced successful legislation, and I think you're planning on doing a little bit with this coming session, the anti-bullying.
Bullying is it's something that, in fact, I got a phone call, believe it or not, on Friday from a family member in Massachusetts, a family member of the latest young man down in Greensburg, Indiana, that committed suicide. And his reason for getting a hold of me was he wanted to see what was going on in bullying. He knew what had happened in Massachusetts. If you remember, last year there was a terrible incident where this young girl had been bullied to the point of suicide. So when he went into the internet, which is great, Googling, he found my name. And he called me to compliment me because I was so far ahead of everybody else, because I introduced the bill, and actually I introduced it in 2004 and it was defeated. but in 2005 we passed what then was model for the nation on anti-bullying policies that we would do in the schools. Well, the reason I'm looking at it today is I'm still getting letters, I'm still getting emails, and I'm still getting phone calls from families all over the state. In fact, today after we meet, I will be calling a lady down in New Albany, Indiana, whose daughter had talked to suicide from bullying. And so, you sit there and you go, well, we've got the law, we put it in place, what's going on? And I think that what's happening is in a lot of areas, in a lot of parts of our state, administrators are not following through. And so we really need to address that, and that's what I'm going to try to do in the future. In fact, on Friday also, I got a phone call from a producer of 60 Minutes, and they're talking about, they wanted to talk to me on the issue, and they're thinking about doing something in the future on bullying. So I don't know whether I'll get to be on 60 Minutes or not, but it was pretty interesting that they would search me out too.
Is part of this issue keeping up with technology as far as the internet and cell phones and
yeah, exactly. Part of it is, since 2005, I mean, when you see what the advent has been with the texting issue that we have, when you think on the internet, we have Facebook, we have all of these things where children are now able to do something anonymously, maybe. They're able to put this information out, or they're able to do something to others. And, my belief always, my kids are out of school, but I've got grandkids that are in school. And I think to myself that, no kid should ever have to go to school and a parent have to fear what's happening with their child in school, regardless of what it is, regardless of whether it's the young person's lifestyle, whether it's a disability that they have. I even had a cruel story on something that was done with a parent that their child has cerebral palsy. And, I'm sitting here thinking, how cruel can someone be to... And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that the schools have done what we said in 2005. They've got the bill, or they've got the legislation or the action in place, that they have a policy. But now it's most important how many of them are really following that policy and how many of them are taking action. And we saw what happened in Carmel earlier this year. I in fact called the assistant principal and complimented them on their actions. And then I found out that for 4 to 6 weeks before that is when it had happened, excuse me, and they hadn't done anything about it. And so I was kind of sorry that I did that. But at the same time, here a couple of weeks ago, I called Brian Smith, who used to be at Southwest Allen Schools, because he took action down there immediately on a situation that was very, very visible. And he didn't wait around for someone to complain. He took action immediately. And I called Brian and I complimented him. And it was, it's something that, it's you can't answer all the cures, and people have complained, said I'm nanny government and all this other stuff. But I think that we have a responsibility to make sure that these things don't happen, bad things don't happen to other people. And when it comes to kids, they're pretty special to me anyway.